The Hawk That Dare Not Hunt by Day by Scott Odell, Chapter 32. We had decided to take a cargo of wool to Antwerp, but a day before our sailing, on the advice of Belsey and Henry Phillips, the plans were suddenly changed. The night before we were to sail, Belsey climbed over the bulwarks and strode across the deck to where Ed Grote and I were making an adjustment on the steering gear. The gear was sound, but had a movement that I didn't like when the ship was in a following sea. "I observe that you are all battened down," Belsey said cheerily, though he looked as if he needed a week's sleep. "All ready for the heavy weather." "Weather's good in the Channel," I said. "A ship in this morning from Antwerp reported fine sailing." "Well," said Belsey, "Phillips and I were reading Fugger's newsletter last night at the Anchor and Chain and learned that wool's down 10% in Antwerp and up 7% in Venice. So we decided, knowing that you'd agree with us and want the best deal possible, to pass Antwerp and send the cargo to Venice. By contract, I held a controlling interest in the New World Company. I could have said that the ship was scheduled for Antwerp, that I was sailing for Antwerp, and that we would store the wool until the price improved. Instead, I went on with my work in silence, while Belsey paced back and forth, waiting for my word. If we changed our sailing from Antwerp to Venice, it meant that I would not be able to talk to Curtis, Tyndale's friend, or, unless I was fortunate, even be able to get a message to Tyndale. And a message was important. It was a matter, I firmly believed, of life and death. The meeting on the beach with Phillips, when Grote and I were tarring the hull, had convinced me that Belsey and Phillips were in league against Tyndale. I was certain now that they had been together in Cologne, that actually I had seen Phillips there, that the talk about sheathing the ship with lead taken from the Wilton Abbey was only a ruse, an effort to find out how I felt about the king's confiscation of church's property. The information I had drawn from Carswell confirmed what I already suspected about Phillips. Although there were many opposed to William Tyndale, none of them exceeded Phillips in hatred. There were many, I truly believe, at the moment in the Low Countries, in Germany and in France, upward of 100 spies and agents, all of them on the trail of the translator of the New Testament, but none more violently against him than Phillips. There was one, for instance, Francis Berkman, a bookbinder in Antwerp, who even tried to buy up a whole pipe of these Bibles from a shop in Frankfurt in order to burn them. And John Hackett, the English ambassador in the Low Countries, was instructed by Chancellor Wolsey, the king's closest advisor, to discover the printer of Tyndale's books, to gather them together and send them to London for a burning. Instead, all of the copies that could be found were seized and burned in Bergen-op-Zoom. Belsey came over to where I was working with Ed Grote. "What decision have you come to?" he asked. "We've already made up our minds. Venice is our best opportunity." "I haven't come to any decision," I said. "I'll let you know when I'm through with the tiller. We can't go anywhere until it's fixed." The tiller was already fixed, but I went puttering around, thinking hard and deciding at last that I would go to Antwerp first, talk to Tyndale if he was there, leave a message if he was not, and then sail on to Venice. A 2 or 3 day stopover in Antwerp was of no importance in a voyage of this length. But the decision came suddenly to naught, as Henry Phillips climbed aboard and announced that he would like to go as far as Seville with us. "We'll sail with the tide," I said, "and the tide will ebb at 4. The bells at St. Paul's had just struck the hour of 1. That gives you 3 hours to get yourself aboard." I excused myself with a captain's curt bow and went at once to my cabin. There I wrote a long letter to Tyndale relating all that I had learned in my talks with Phillips, the information about his character that I had gained from Warden Carswell, and my own beliefs about his violent intentions. I sealed the letter carefully and went out immediately on the waterfront and searched diligently until I found a captain whom I trusted and who was making the voyage to Antwerp within the week. Carswell had confirmed something more than just my suspicion that Phillips desired to destroy Tyndale's work. He had proved, to me at last, that Phillips desired to destroy Tyndale himself. Furthermore, I was certain that Phillips was well supplied with gold, money that he had received from rich men in London who were equally determined upon Tyndale's destruction. Many said that it was a ruthless man named John Stokesley who furnished the gold to Phillips, because he had often bragged that he had killed more heretics than anyone else alive. End of chapter